Hi, I'm Rachel, and I know that the people who are living their best lives have developed the skills for self-leadership, and I am on a mission to bring self-leadership skill development to everyone. So let's dive in, because today is actually a really great day. We're going to be looking at being green, and I've got a couple of quotes to start us off. Okay, so from Shakespeare, "To thine own self be true." And then Dave Chappelle, a couple of guys I'm fans of here, he reminds us that the hardest thing is to be true to yourself, especially when everybody is watching. Thank you, Dave. And that reminds me, actually, change is really hard. And if it weren't hard, we would all just continue to change in the ways that are best for us, right? So what we're going to do is going to be hard or challenging, but totally worth it. So let's start. Okay, one of the things that I've heard again and again and again with women is that once you've lived into a lot of yellow for a long time, you kind of lose track of who you are, like who you would even be where you'd be green. A little bit like sometimes we talk about we feel like we've lost ourselves or we've lost track of who we were along the way. So whether today is about kind of reconnecting with yourself or just renewing what you already know about yourself, today we're really going to start looking at where am I green for myself and looking at some of the foundational elements of that. We're going to look at some values, some characteristics, but also important, looking at time and how we can be green each and every day with how we allocate our time. Okay, so today we have a couple of worksheets. That's because some of them have loads of suggestions of things like values and characteristics. And here's really what I want you to spend some time doing. If we are going to know who we are when we are at green, then we've got to be able to identify really easily and quickly who we are, like what is important to us. So as you read the list of values, and by the way, if you don't see something you like on there for you, or you have one that I haven't thought of, please just add it. It's your list, okay? But what I really want to invite you to do is not to identify each and every value that you would consider to be important, because we could have tens, maybe hundreds even, if we really put our mind to it. But rather, I'd like you to develop the skills of leadership, which is here are the core values, the 2 or 3 core values that absolutely guide who I am, how I am, and who I'm going to be. And these are the non-negotiable values. And when I live into these, I can be green. So with that lens of challenge of not just what sounds good or who do I want to be, which values actually serve you by being a part of your core, your foundation. Once you've identified the values that are essentially the most you, right? The ones that your identity is really connected to. I then want you to take a look at the characteristics list. Now, as you approach this, there may be very many characteristics that you already identify with, characteristics that you do really well. But I also want you to think about, what if I was really growing 1 or 2 or 3 characteristics that by growing specifically into those, I would be more green for myself, I would develop my self-leadership. So if you are already very strong in a characteristic, you may be able to nudge that even further to help you be even more green for yourself, but you might also look at where else would it really serve you to grow into that characteristic that you actually really want to show up being. And if you did show up being that way, you'd be green for you. Let me just take you through the answers that my client that I was talking to you about in the other videos came up with. So when she looked at her values, she had a value of teamwork that was really important to her. She was always wanting to be available and supportive of her teams and colleagues. And she also had a value for growth, that she believed inherently that people are at their best when they consistently seek growth. Okay, so those were her values that she identified as the 2 that she really wanted to keep as her foundation to keep coming back to. That doesn't mean that they're the only 2 she had. She has lots and lots of values, but those were the ones that were really going to serve her as she looked towards this next place of moving into green. Okay. Then we look at her characteristics. Okay, the two that she chose. Speak up and brave, to be brave. So she realized that with her team, she would speak up. With her supervisor added to the team, she would not speak up. She would not be brave. And she realized that really to move into being more green for herself, to really develop her self-leadership, she was going to have to be brave. She was going to have to speak up. And that would be how she would actually serve the value of being a team player, right? Of teamwork. So for you, take some time to think about what are those core values that you are really identifying with right now. And maybe these are lifetime values, and sometimes these are the values that you're going to really focus on as you grow into this next level of being who you're going to be for yourself, being green. And over time, you might adapt and change both the values and characteristics as you accomplish more and more. So for now, think about how it serves you today moving forward. Okay, the other thing that I hear a lot of is this idea that I don't have enough time, or my time is taking up with all these things that I don't want to do, or essentially a lot of time is given over to being in the space of yellow. So what I've asked you to do on that second worksheet is to really start looking at, over the course of a week, like, how do I spend an average day? Where is my time allocated? I've given some sort of starters for where that might be in terms of work or commuting or making dinner or spending time with friends or family. But I want you to make this your own. So you're going to add your own categories. Like really, you can take that circle with all the hours of the day and just identify them however it would serve you best. So often when we actually look at where we're spending our time, we find that we are spending time doing things that we're yellow for. Maybe we're zoning out in front of Netflix, or we have said yes to doing that favor for someone that we really didn't want to say yes to, or maybe that Thursday lunch with Pam that we don't enjoy going to because she's just not our kind of person. Maybe she's so yellow herself that it's kind of a lunch of two yellows, which quite frankly can be kind of dull and not very invigorating. Maybe we want to say no to that and actually go to the gym or read a book or go for a walk, but we say yes, right? Because we don't want to hurt her feelings. We do all this yellow stuff. So I want you to take a really honest look. As I think about how I spend my days, how much of that time is in yellow? And then you've got the opportunity to turn this around and actually identify how you'd like your days to look. When I was doing this work with the client we've been following throughout this little mini series, when she did it, she was really surprised at how she was actually at work much longer than she had realized. So she was coming in earlier and she was staying. And when we actually talked about why it was she was doing that, remember that value of teamwork she had? She'd come into this belief that if she was there before anyone else and stayed until everyone had left, that would be one way, a really important way that she would be being a team player, like really contributing to teamwork, so that if anyone ever needed her or needed to ask a question, she was right there, right? Because she was the first one in, and she would always wait until the end of the day and leave really much later than she'd anticipated. So one of the ways when she then redid her wheel of 24 hours was to actually put in an arrival time and a leaving time and look for other ways to actually show her teamworkship. Because what we were able to uncover is that being present doesn't make you a team player. It just means that you're in the vicinity. Being a team player is about many other things. And so when we were able to identify what those were, it meant that she could let go of having to be at work for so many hours and rather show up more for her allocated hours and add other things into life that made her excited for life, green for life, and a fan. So this is going to just reveal for you, if you like, those places in which you have just put into your daily living some elements of yellow that allow you to ask the question, am I going to keep those? Am I going to change those? Am I going to be more green for me? Okay, if you are ready to step into your confident self-leadership in a bolder, deeper way, then you can contact me through the Contact Me form on my website. And for the rest of you, next time we meet, we're going to tie all this together and create an actionable plan of how you're going to make the transition from being yellow to being green. I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for joining me.